Welcome to Google Sheets 101. This is an introductory overview, or for some of you, a refresher on Google Sheets. So the first thing you're going to do, of course, is open Google Sheets. I like to do that by going to Drive, clicking on New, and then clicking Google Sheets. I've already got one open for this, so I'm just going to switch over to that tab. Of course, like most Google products, up in the top left corner, you can go in and type a name for the document, and just some basic overview. Each individual little square here is a cell. That's where you can type. You have rows and you have columns. And you can manipulate these, and that's where some of the power of Google Sheets comes in. You can also add tabs at the bottom. So if I hit Add Sheet, it's going to add another sheet in here. And then all of your sheets collectively are known as your workbook. If you right click, you can remove them. So I'm going to delete that one. It's going to ask if you want to do that. You can also right click to duplicate them to make another copy, or to protect it, to just give an extra little way to keep it from being erased accidentally. The last thing you can do is rename, which you can do by right clicking, clicking rename, or double click and change the name that way. Finally, you can go in and change the color. Can help with organization. I like to change the color on a lot of tabs inside a workbook. So I've got a demo sheet here with some data in it. And the first thing is, if you needed to add additional data, you just simply click on the cell and type. So if I'm adding a student in here, I might fill it out such as this, and that will allow me to add additional student information into my spreadsheet. Next is resizing your cells. The first option is to just come up here to the top of the column and grab with a left click and hold and adjust it, and it's going to change the size of that box. So let's say I wanted that one to be real large and this one maybe a little closer. The last option is if you double click, it's going to resize it to however big that needs to be. So that one did it for that, but let's say I had the name Goldsmith, Goldsmith dash Mattinger. Now that's much bigger. Again, I can adjust this with a click and drag, or I can just double click and it's going to now adjust to that new general size. The last thing is, if I highlight two cells at the same time and I adjust the size, they're both going to go to that same size. So if you want very evenly spaced columns, highlight all of them and then adjust the size. If I highlight all of them and double click, it's going to adjust them to each of the size they need to be. So if you want them to be all the same size, you're going to need to do that manually. So now I'll just adjust these back down to that, and then let's say I want these to be a little bigger. Those are kind of small, so I stretch that out, and maybe I stretch it out a little bit more. Next, a feature that I like to do is, you can go in and bold these just like you would in a word processor like Google Docs or Microsoft Word, and you can click on your tab tools up here, and maybe I want those to be centered. So these are now bolded and centered, which helps them stick out, and that can work in any of this. Perhaps I want this whole column to be centered. You just click on the letter identifying the column, and then I could go up here and say I want all of those things to go to the center. Okay, a couple other formatting things you might be interested in. Of course, if I have this highlighted and I really want that email to stick out, I can go up here and change the color. So maybe I want that to be red, and it's still bolded. Bolded is not a word, it's still bold. And then maybe I want to change the background of these. So if I come over here to fill color, I could then turn that background into blue. And those are things you just might want to do. Let's say next, if I highlight a column and I click and hold, I can then move that whole column. Maybe I want it to be first name and then last name instead of last name and then first. If I decide I want some other information between last name and email, I have a couple options. Option one is I can right click, come down here into insert column, and maybe I just insert a column that way. And if I don't want that column later, I can always right click it and delete it. Or I could click a column over here and again just drag it over and move it into that new spot. And the same thing, these are going to work on our rows. If I click onto the row and hold, I could then drag it underneath here. Or I can right click and insert a row above or below. So next is a kind of a neat trick. Maybe I want these names to be combined again. So I'm going to push this back to where I had it. And then I'm going to make a new column here that is first last. And I'm going to format that just like I did before. You know, I want that to be into the middle. I want it to be bold. And I want it to have a blue background. And maybe because this is their combined, I'm going to have it have an orange background. So what you can do is type in the equal sign, and that is what lets the Google Sheets program know you're going to be doing some sort of input. And I can go click on the first name, and you can see right here it says B2. That's telling it it's going to go grab the data out of B2. And then I'm going to use the AND symbol, and I'm going to go click on the next cell I want. So in this case, I want A2, which is the last name. And if I hit enter, it's going to combine those. And then it's going to ask, do I want to do this for the rest of this? In this case, I do. And so it just goes ahead and populates that in there for me with their names all together. Now, there's no space here. We have some weird formatting. So maybe to fix that, you're just going to come back up here and you add a quotation mark with a space in it. And that just kind of tells it to give me a space in there, and then add another and hit enter. And now this name is correct. And then if you ever need to copy what you did, highlight the cell, grab this little box that appears, and I drag that down. And that tells each one of these to do that exact same formula that I did in each box. Now my name sticks out too far, so again I double click. And it's going to stretch that cell column out so that they're all everything can be seen. And so that's another neat little technique you can do to quickly add if you wanted that information combined. All right, last is maybe you want to print this, or just to help yourself with again some formatting, is to add borders. So if I highlight everything in here, well, really, even if I just highlight this one and I click on this borders, I can come in here and maybe I want a line at the bottom, or if I do this, it's going to encase the whole thing. So if I highlight all of this and I click border and then I click on all borders, it's going to go ahead and put a darkened black border. You see, you have the kind of light here, but now if you print this, these are all going to print inside of that border. So again, it just cleans it up, makes it look how you maybe want it to look a little better. And so that can be another very useful thing. Another last little thing, you can rotate this text. So if I do this, and as you can see, it rotates that text and turns it on a little kind of an angle like that. And then finally, the last little format I want to talk about is let's say that I have a lot of text in a cell I want to format, but I don't want to stretch this cell out that far. You can go in to each cell, and then if you come up here and come over to this text wrapping, you can select and change it to wrap. And then as you can see right there, what that does, let's watch right here, is it changes that, and so it makes it so if you go longer than the cell is, it's going to pull it underneath. And so that's what text wrapping does, and that can be a very helpful tool. I'm going to go ahead and back up and get that out of there. But that is text wrapping, and that's something that can be very functional for you. So next I'm going to show just a couple quick things you can use this for. So let's say I was doing some fundraising, and this student raised $85, $25, $67. We'll just do those three for speed purposes. 78, 24, 90, and 89, 67, and 12. Fundraising 2 and fundraising 3. And as you can see, I can go back. Let's say I meant to capitalize that. Well, I can go click on the cell and double click, and then I can go in and make an edit. Or I can come up here if that's a little easier for me and make that edit. And again, maybe I want to tilt this so these stick out. Now that is going to make these boxes bigger. For some of you, that's going to bother you, and so you're not going to want to do that. But the first is if I hit equals, and again, if I click on this and then hit plus, and then the last one and hit enter, it's going to total those up. Now that can be done a lot faster through functions. So as you see here, it's already trying to give me this sum function, which is what I want, and it's going to add those up. And then again, remember, if I click on the cell and grab this little box, it's going to copy all those. Now maybe I want to know how much Mr. Ramos here made, so maybe I hit equals and average. Now there are a lot of these, and you're not going to use most of them. So if you're trying to do something in here, you can ask or go take a look, and you can find out what they are or what's available. So then back to the formatting is just a little reminder. Maybe I want to come in here now and add a line there and a line here, just to kind of separate those out from my individuals, because these are my totals. And so lastly, if you want some quick formatting, since we know this is all money, we can come up here and switch this to currency, and it's going to adjust those for us. And so then we get that information very quickly. I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this just to get it out of there. And it kind of left this, so kind of a weird thing. If you delete stuff like that, you do need to go back in there and erase those. So next, let's go take a look at sorting. So I have these are not in alphabetical order. So the easy way, if I highlight all this and I go over here to filter, I can create a filter and sort it that way. But you can also just come up here, and of course you have your toolbars up here, and you can sort this column from A to Z. Now the problem is, wait a minute, it took my header. So if we back up out of our header, and we first come up here to the view, and we go to freeze, and we freeze one row. So what that did is that froze this top row. Now if we come into data and sort the sheet from A to Z, it sorts, and you see it pulls everything with it. And so it has sorted this by last name, first name, by last name in alphabetical order, and it pulls everything else. But maybe we want to sort by first name. We'll just go click on that column and then go back into your data and tell it to sort sheet, and now it's going to say by column B instead. And so instead it's going to sort by the second column instead of by the first name instead of the last name. Now that's preposterous. You wouldn't want to do that, but that is what that would enable you to do. And with that, I'm really close to my 15-minute mark. I try to keep these under that whenever I can. So that's going to be it for Google Sheets 101. Reach out to me if you need help.